Good morning and welcome to the February 20th Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg. My name is Ben Atherton-Zeman and I am the minister here. I am so excited to bring you today's worship service alongside today's worship service associate John Motter.
Thank you, Reverend Ben. We are a people of many beliefs, but we share a common faith that what we do in this world matters and that we are connected to one another and to our planet. Whoever you are, wherever you are in your journey, you are welcome here. I want to give a special welcome to any newcomers. If you want a church where Black Lives Matter, where no human beings are illegal, and where housing is a right, not a privilege, I have good news for you. You may have found your church home. We have 3 announcements today. First one, virtual church continues via YouTube Live, but the safety team hopes that we'll be able to return in person hybrid worship soon. Also, tomorrow is President's Day, and in observance of that, the church office will be closed.
Thank you, John. And our final announcement concerns Reverend Aaliyah Cannon, who is one of our greeters today. Since I keep referring to her as Reverend Aaliyah, apparently some of you are confused and you're like, did we hire a new minister? The answer is, I wish that we had the budget for 2 ministers and Reverend Aaliyah would make a spectacular second minister. But no, she's doing this as a volunteer. There are, I believe, at least 3 ordained ministers in our congregation amongst our lay leadership. Reverend Aaliyah was ordained in the Druid tradition 10 years ago. There are also 2 in divinity school, so we'll have more reverends soon, and we do operate under a shared ministry model. So when Reverend Aaliyah is co-leading worship, I refer to her as Reverend Aaliyah, the way I would refer to Reverend Bob if he were co-leading worship, or Reverend Janae once she is ordained. I like the sound of that, Reverend Janae. I could get used to that. Speaking of Janae, not a reverend yet, Janae Johnson and I will bring today's worship time for all ages. John Arterton and James Mack are providing music along with Aaron Cassette, who you just heard playing. Kelly Elson is live streaming. Our greeters are Carol Ulmer, Lucinda Zeman, Jamie Gray, and Reverend Aaliyah Cannon. Our church bell just now was rung by 10-year-old Holland Pompucius, assisted by her mother Marty. Now let's take a moment to center ourselves for worship.
Our flaming chalice is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism. It is a symbol of hope, the sacred, the quest for truth, and the warmth of community, the light of reason, and so much more. When Jade lights our chalice, I invite you to say our covenant out loud. The words can be found in the text chat. Please follow along with the new hand movements. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not that circle, make it wider still, till it includes, embraces all the living. Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong or guilt. But will that human bonds remain unbroken? Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves, stand on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
Our reading this morning was written by the Reverend Jen Crow, Senior Minister of the First Universalist Church of Minneapolis. Her words, an invitation for their service last week. Here we are again. Here we are, grieving the death of Amir Locke, a young black man killed by a Minneapolis police officer yesterday morning. Here we are, remembering Winston Smith, Dante Wright, George Floyd, Philando Castile, Jamar Clark, and Terrence Franklin. The losses stretch back through time. Black men, black women, trans black people, targeted and killed by the police and self-appointed white supremacy every day. This is how it has been for generations, and this is how it is today. Here we are celebrating black survival, black brilliance, black history, black presence. Here we are, creating communities of belonging, joy, and liberation. Here we are, proclaiming a love that will not let us go. A circle wide enough to hold all of us. Love and hope worth living into. A faith that holds the promise of a healing the world. Bring it all of the sadness, heartache, and lament, all of the hope, resistance, and determination, and all of the grace, all of the joy, all of the practices that heal. Bring it all, because here we are.
Amen, and blessed be. Now we come to the time in our worship for joys, sorrows, and concerns. As John said, this service is being brought to you largely over YouTube Live. So please, in our YouTube audience, please type your joys, your sorrows, and your concerns into the text chat. During the week, if you have a joy or a sorrow or a concern to submit to me, please write me at minister@uustpete.org and let me know if you would prefer it to remain off YouTube. Right now, Jay Johnson is going to place a stone in the water for each joy, sorrow, or concern that was submitted this week, and there were quite a few. First, we have a stone of sorrow from Debbie Polis Carter. Debbie just found out that former UU St. Pete member Connie Millette died in December of 2020 of COVID-19. Connie was a good friend of Debbie's. Apparently many others were good friends of Debbie's here at UU St. Pete. Debbie was very active in social justice, both locally, regionally, and nationally.
Our next stone of joy is for Barbara and Tom's granddaughter, Hannah, who got accepted into the University of Chicago this week. Way to go, Hannah, congratulations.
A stone of sorrow for Trayvon Martin, shot and killed by George Zimmerman 10 years ago this week. Trayvon Martin was 17 years old. His crime was holding a bag of Skittles, being black.
A stone of joy for Terry Sweet, who is the main volunteer for the cottage out back where we collect and give clothing and toiletries to those in need. It's Terry's birthday, so happy birthday, Cottage Queen Terry, and I'll spare you my singing of happy birthday. You'll be much happier that way. And a stone of sorrow for Ann Seidel on the loss of Mindy Simmons. Mindy was a UU folk singer, former president of Sarasota UU congregation, and of SUSI, the Southern UU Summer Institute. She will be missed.
A stone of concern for my friend Gretchen Stewart, who walked on the Great Peace March with me and is watching. Good morning, Gretchen. Many of you met her and her two sons when she came here back when we were in person. Gretchen, unfortunately, is recovering from COVID-19. Well, that's not unfortunate. I'm glad you're recovering, Gretchen, but I do hope that you feel better soon. And then a stone of loss for Beulah Dotson, who passed away, bless you, at age 83. Beulah was a mother-in-law, a grandmother to two of my Florida friends who are also watching, and Beulah Dotson will be missed.
A stone of concern for Bridget Oya, who asked us to please pray for Steve, Noreen, Megan, and Barbara.
A stone of concern for my new friend Camille Law, whom I met at the Fair Housing Rally on Thursday and who is with us today. Camille's 29 years old and currently homeless. And then, if Jade, you could put in a final stone for those joys, sorrows, and concerns that remain in our hearts, perhaps too tender yet to be spoken aloud. And let us take a moment of silence together. The mystery is that we are connected, even when we feel apart. So let us rejoice in the beloved community that makes of the many one. So may it be.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the giving life the shape of justice, roots holding close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Good morning. One day, we were playing outside in our yard when my brother got mad and he pushed me so hard that I pushed him right back with all of my might, and as quick as a wink, we were having a fight. We thwacked and we whacked and we walloped away, and still might be fighting to this very day, pinching and punching my brother and I, if only our sister hadn't not happened by. She was sipping some soda, pop out of a cup, and she would share it if we would make up. And since we were thirsty and tired and sore, we each took a drink and ended our war. It's funny how quickly an argument ends, and to think we thought we'd never be friends.
That night after supper, we turned on TV, but we couldn't agree on what show we should see. I wanted one and my sister another, and both of us hated the choice of our brother. And we probably all would be arguing yet if our dad hadn't come in and turned off the set. So we put on pajamas, curled up on his bed, and he read us a wonderful story instead. It's funny how quickly an argument ends. And to think that we thought we'd never be friends. A day or two later, not much more, a great big new family moved in next door. How many were in it, we couldn't quite tell, but they each played an instrument. Not very well. One played a tuba and one a bassoon. They practiced all morning and all afternoon. They practiced till evening and all through the night, and they kept us from sleeping, and that wasn't right. So we got out of bed with a hippity hop, and we marched off together to beg them to stop. But when we arrived there, they asked us to play. They did it so nicely. What could we say? I took a whistle, my sister a flute, my brother a trumpet that gave a loud toot, my dad took a bugle, my mother a drum. We all forgot why we had come. It's funny how quickly an argument ends, and to think that we thought we'd never be friends.
Then all of a sudden we heard a loud blare as a siren came wailing out from thin air. A police car pulled over and up jumped out the police. And they told us that we were disturbing the peace. And they said if we didn't stop playing that minute, they'd take us to jail and put us all in it. My brother got red and my sister grew pale, and everyone trembled at going to jail. But my mother explained that the noise we had made was because we were practicing for a parade. And so she said the siren had sounded so grand that she hoped it would ride at the end of our band. It's funny how quickly an argument ends now that all the police had turned into our friends. We marched down the street, and each person we passed loudly complained at our ear-splitting blast. They begged us to deaden our deafening Denton until we invited them all to join in. We offered them boxes and kettles and spoons, and once they were playing, they changed their tunes. They were all so pleased by the music that we played. They all came to be a part of our splendid parade. More and more people stepped right into place. More and more people kept up with our pace, strutting and striding and stamping our feet, marching in time to the drum-steady beat. Friends who squabbled and even stopped talking settled their differences once they were walking, smiled at each other and marched hand in hand, keeping the beat of our wonderful band. And then we could hardly believe what we saw. Dog and cat enemies marched paw in paw. And when our procession arrived at the zoo, lions and tigers joined in with us too. It's funny how quickly in friendliness ends, and to think we thought we'd never be friends.
Our music was magic, a magnet to all. As to a Pied Piper, they came to its call. As we kept marching and tooting and drumming, the people kept coming and coming and coming. Hundreds and thousands came running to find us. Thousands and millions fell in right behind us. What a cacophony, what a commotion. Then all of a sudden, we got to the ocean. We came to the place where the country ends, with hundreds and thousands and millions of friends. But what could we do now? We started to fret. Couldn't keep marching without getting wet. So we just began to turn around, but then we heard a most unusual, odd sound. It wasn't a moan, and it wasn't a cry, wasn't a groan, wasn't a sigh. It was more like a humming high up in the scale, a whisper, a whistle, a whimper. a whale.
A whale? Like,
No, a whale, like in the ocean. So more like a woo. A whale, 100 or more. All of them swimming straight to the shore, singing their whale songs, grinning with glee. So we jumped on their backs and sailed straight out to sea. Sharks swam around us, baring their teeth, and stingrays kept rising from far underneath. But somehow the songs and the music we played convinced them to join in our ocean parade. For music is magic. It soothes and it mends. To think that we thought we would never be friends.
we crossed the ocean wide and washed up on land, where people kept hearing the sound of our band. And even those who first came to protest soon were parading along with the rest. And it's hard to believe, but I swear it's true. By the time we were finished and finally through, and we'd gotten all the way back to the place we first played, the whole world was marching in our big parade. And before we disbanded and went each our way, we voted to march every year on that day, to march side by side with friends we had made and the friends we made up in one big parade. And from that day to this, it's just what we do, with the police sirens bailing and the horns tooting too, with our pots and our pans and trumpets and drums, with everyone comes. And this is our cheer every year when it ends.
Forever and ever, we'll always be friends.
Thank you.
Lift every voice and let us sing. In every song, let freedom ring. From every soul comes a noble dream. Let justice roll like a mighty stream, like a mighty stream, like a mighty stream, like a mighty stream. Let justice roll, let justice roll, let justice roll, like a mighty stream. Child beneath the sun, and every soul shall live as one. The noble dream has just begun, like a mighty stream, like a mighty stream, like a mighty stream. Let justice roll, let justice roll, let justice roll, like a mighty stream, like a mighty stream, like a mighty stream, like a mighty stream. Let justice roll, let justice roll, let justice roll, like a mighty stream.
Really? I have to follow that? Thank you. Let justice roll like a mighty stream. Our theme this month is Widening the Circle. It's also the title of today's worship service. Those of you who tuned in last week, Reverend Jay Wolin encouraged us to widen our definition of love. It was Valentine's Day, and he wanted us to think about agape love as well as eros love. And the week before that, our two Journeys speakers described their widened experiences with Unitarian Universalism. One of them was new, one of them had been with us for a while. And this week, actually that week, I widened my own experience by attending another Unitarian Universalist church. A lot of you know I like to attend other churches. That week I got to hear the amazing Reverend Christina Spaude lead worship at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs. You should all visit the church if you haven't already. It has this beautiful artwork by George Innes. The town is beautiful. I got to eat some delicious Greek food, buy sponges, homemade soap. Reverend Christina shared that week the reading that John shared with us earlier and the Time for All Ages that Janae and I shared, and to think we thought we would never be friends. I cried, perhaps you did, when we read it today. The thought that this seemingly insurmountable differences and arguments could actually be overcome fills me with hope. We in this congregation do have our differences, we have our arguments, but we also have the skills, the resilience, the resources, the strength, dare I say the love, to agree to disagree, to listen to one another, to keep moving forward, side by side, like a mighty stream. That's what covenant is. Last week, Reverend Jay reminded us of the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, God says I have to love everyone. It's a good thing God doesn't say I have to like them. February is Black History Month, yet many of us do not agree about the Black Lives Matter movement, about the significance of microaggressions, racist microaggressions, about the proposed Unitarian Universalist eighth principle. Still, our denomination's leadership is asking our historically white membership to widen our circle, to include historically marginalized voices, Black voices, disabled voices, trans voices, BIPOC voices, homeless voices. This is essential work for our denomination and for this congregation in particular, as Black people are still being killed by the police, as women's reproductive freedom is yet again being threatened, as affordable housing remains a privilege instead of a right, as the Florida legislature considers the Don't Say Gay bill. This widening of our circle has not been a comfortable one, nor will it be without conflict. It's interesting that this Time for All Ages ended up in a parade to the ocean. My first experience with Covenant, though I didn't call it so at the time, was walking across the United States on the Great Peace March for Global Nuclear Disarmament in 1986. Many of you know that I was 19 when I walked. Others were as old as 79, as young as newborns from all 50 states and 12 different countries. We disagreed on just about everything, except for global nuclear disarmament. And there were many long town hall meetings in our big town hall tents where we expressed our disagreements in no uncertain terms. By the time we walked from Los Angeles to Iowa, there were some folks who had joined our community to walk and everyone had to walk or they had to work in one of our departments. Like some folks, it was their job to make the food in our portable kitchen. Some folks, it was their job to look after our children or teach our middle schoolers. We had everything on a vehicle. So there was literally a middle school bus, a K through 4 bus, a preschool bus. You had to walk, you had to work. But more and more people were joining, and some of those people were not working and were not walking. They were there because they loved our community, and they would go on the workers' shuttle every day to the next site, not walk, not work. I had feelings about that. So at this town hall meeting in this big tent, I told everyone I thought these new arrivals should either work or walk. And my friend Mike Esmailzadeh, who I hope is listening. Hi, Mike. Mike is an anarchist and at the time was a resident of Black Flag Village. We put our tents into villages, women's camp. I've told you about it already. Black Flag Village was the anarchist village. He got up and he disagreed with me. Mike said we should be a welcoming community, not turn anyone away because they don't agree to our terms and conditions. I said we can welcome anyone, but they need to either work or walk. He said we shouldn't be making controlling rules for participation in our peaceful and so-called welcoming community. I said we are making food for these folks. They are eating our food. They need to work or walk. He said, fine, then they can have my food. I won't eat. I will stand next to the garbage bins and I will eat only the food that people were going to throw out anyway. And it went along those lines, like many town hall meetings did for us. But we got tired. The town hall meeting got over. You get really tired when you're walking like 15 to 25 miles a day. So the meetings were usually limited by our own physical fatigue, and we went into our tents, and I went into my tent and slept and fretted. And guess what? Even though we didn't come to a resolution, there was still work to do. Some of us had to wake up really early to cook that breakfast. We all had to get up in time to eat the breakfast and walk. I walked a little bit behind Mike that day. I was watching him walk in front of me. Still mad. I was still mad. But I liked the guy. I mean, he had been walking with us since Los Angeles. We had been walking together since Los Angeles. I knew him to be a young man of principle. Young man, I was young. He was really old. He was like 22 or something like that. I knew him to be a hard worker, funny, articulate, a loyal friend. So, sped up, caught up to him, said, hey, Mike. He said, hey. We just kind of walked for a bit, had a little water from our water bottles. Said to him, Mike, you really going to stand by the trash can and only eat the food that people throw away? He said, yeah, I am. I said, mind if I join you? He said, no, yeah, that's not at all. Sure. You can join me. So we got to camp. Dinner started being served, and there was Mike and me standing next to the trash can, eating whatever people didn't want. This was pre-COVID. This was 1986. A lot was different then. It was fun. He and I talked, and we laughed. I ate a lot of brown rice. We were teasing people about the food they threw away. We didn't come to an agreement. He still thought we shouldn't have these rules to join our community. I still thought that if you join our community, you should work or you should walk. And neither of us convinced the other the whole rest of the way. But we did get our food by the trash for the next few nights, and other people joined us. Other people laughed with us, sang songs. We made up songs about eating food that people threw away. We kept working side by side. We stayed friends. We walked together all the way to Washington, D.C. And on many nights we sang. We sang in that same big town hall tent. Folk singers like Pete Seeger came and sang for us, and we had our own folk singers who were peace marchers. Holly Neer came. She wrote a song for us. It's called The Great Peace March. Are you black like night, or red like clay? Are you gold like sun, or brown like earth? Gray like mist, or white like moon? My love for you, the reason for my birth. My love for you, the reason for my birth. Who writes that? Music is magic. It soothes and it mends. To think that we thought we would never be friends. During her reflection, Reverend Christina said, because our Unitarian Universalist faith is one that is freely entered into, it is also common for people to feel they are equally free to leave. But I want you to stay. I need your help. We have important work to do, and I can't do it without you. And if you're thinking, does he mean me? He's kind of pointing at me, and he looks like he's looking at me. Yes, I mean you. I need you to help us fight for women's reproductive freedom, to dismantle white supremacy, to work for affordable housing, to work for the liberation of transgender, gay, lesbian, bisexual people. I need you to help one another's spiritual growth, to call each other when you're lonely, to feed each other when you're hungry. We in this congregation have our differences. We have our arguments. But we also have the skills, the resilience, the resources, the strength, and dare I say the love to keep moving forward, side by side. That's what covenant is. And as John sang in our hymn earlier, break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow, forgiven and forgiving. Break not the circle, make it wider still, till it includes, embraces all the living. Amen. Blessed be.
Thank you, Reverend Ben. Red eyes do not look good on camera, but Reverend Ben told a little story that made me a little bit sad in a good way. But let us remember our connection to one another, and let us not forget our contributions to support the means to those connections. If you are a newcomer here, refrain from giving a donation. This service is our gift to you, and your presence is your gift to us. The link to give is in the description box below your screen. You can also donate through the Vanco Faith Engagement mobile app or on our website under the Giving tab at uustpete.org, or by sending a check to the church office. Many thanks.
I'm going to leave you with some more words from Reverend Jay Wolin last week. Let us feed the hungry, clothe the naked, house the homeless, as well as changing the conditions that create such a need. But as important, between ourselves, a covenanted people, to help each other, to learn from each other, to be righteous with each other, to show mercy to each other. That is what it means to love each other. And isn't that what we want for each other? Isn't that a message that so many people are thirsting for, the power of love? It is within our power. Amen. Blessed be. Now feel free to follow along with the hand gestures as Jade extinguishes our chalice. Thank you, Jade. The words to UU St. Pete's traditional chalice extinguishing are in the text chat. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world. Go with love. Go in peace.